Hey everyone, hello, how are you? Good afternoon. I hope everyone's Saturday has been going well. I hope your Saturday has started off on a good note, on a good footing, and I hope you are enjoying your afternoon so far. As promised, I am returning back to my channel, Meaningful Intuitive Guided Tarot, to give you what I call a special bonus reading. And as I did mention in my heads up video prior to uploading this video, I did mention and give you guys a clue, a heads up, that I would be bringing another kind of reading, perhaps from time to time, to this channel. And that is decoding celebrity deaths. And so the death that I mentioned, the celebrity death that I mentioned that I would be decoding, that will actually start off that type of reading, would be decoding the death of Whitney Houston, as well as her daughter, Bobbi Kristina. I did mention that prior to wanting to do this or to bring it to this channel, that it had been a couple of weeks from since when I was able to actually pull cards and draw cards surrounding the alleged events that took place around her death. And what kind of motivated me to want to do this video and to bring this kind of reading to my channel was because of Leola Brown, Bobbi Brown's sister. When I came across, I did mention in my heads up video that I hadn't known or wasn't aware that she had her own YouTube channel. And so after looking at a video that she posted pertaining to the events and how she interpreted what allegedly happened in her heart of hearts, but she did so giving you the verbal aspects of what she felt could have transpired leading up to Whitney Houston's demise. And so as an extension of what she brought to the audience and to the public from that video on her channel, I am here today to give you, my audience, my viewers, my subscribers, those that are interested to kind of want to know really what may have happened leading up to Whitney Houston's death. I will be bringing to you the visual aspects of what allegedly may have taken place. And saying that, just for protective reasons, I will say alleged, because at the end, I'm still not God, but I have really meditated and tuned in and channeled the energies surrounding Whitney Houston, as well as her daughter, Bobbi Kristina. This reading will be in two parts. The first part will be about Whitney, but they will be broken down in three different phases. And as we go along, I will mention that as we go along. And then the second part of the reading will be about Bobbi Kristina. All right? So without further ado, let us get started. Before we do, I do want to cleanse the auric field between us, between you and my viewers at this time, so as to clear out any unwanted negative energies that might try to come in to interfere. My spirit guides and my spirit teams is around me at this time, but I want to be able to do this and was waiting to do this in front of you, my viewers, so that the energy field among us has no negative, low vibrational energies and frequencies. Spirit, please raise the frequencies and positive flow at this time. Thank you, and so it is. All right, Spirit. Thank you. So, audience, as I said, I will be breaking down the reading in two parts, and we're going to start off with Whitney Houston, okay? So, with that being said, let us begin. I do want to acknowledge the families of the Houston family as well as the Brown family, because they are indeed, no matter how many years have passed, we do know it has marked 10 years since Whitney Houston's passing. And so, you know, some of you, people are going to always have things to say and maybe feel that so much time has passed, if it doesn't, that people should just be able to move on. No, people should not be able to move on. People grieve as long as they need to. And to understand that because I feel that there hasn't been any closure as well. I strongly picked that up, that there has not been any closure toward those families. And so with that being said, whether it's a celebrity death, whether it's the ordinary average people, when we lose someone and there has not been closure, we are always, no matter how much time has passed, we are always going to be out there advocating for the justice of our loved one. And so this is what I am seeing Leola Brown is doing. She is bringing her manner, her way of really getting some type of justice, even after all these years, because there has not been closure. And so, like I said, I just felt that it might be something, if she happens to come across my video today at any time, there might be something that I might say. It might be something that has been revealed with the cards that might help illuminate something for her that can help her to kind of look into it a little bit more deeper, because I do feel, like I said, they are still in the investigative transition of really trying to get to the bottom of the situation with Whitney Houston's passing, that the person that was involved has not been, indicted or have not been brought to the forefront, so to speak. So with that being said, I just wanted to put that out there. But I was mentioning her because, with all due respect, at this time, if she happens to come across this video, again, we do want to be able to be considerate and aware that these families are still grieving the loss of Whitney Houston. And I just want to say to Leola Brown, to the Browns family, and to the Houston's family, that justice will be served. And I feel that now, somehow, things are starting to be illuminated, and that ultimately at the end, Allah is the one that has the final say, and He will bring about justice when the time is right. So have no fear. But I do want to say, keep on advocating, keep on keeping the impact of what you are trying to do in terms of finding the person that was involved with Whitney Houston's demise. Okay? So with that being said, everyone, let us begin. And so I do want to say that at the time of Whitney's death, there were multiple persons of interest that was surrounding her death, right? But, and I do want to say that when I pull these cards, and I just want to say this, because it has been a couple of weeks prior to me deciding to bring this video or this reading to the channel. I want to say that after looking at Leola Brown's video, this was a couple of weeks, maybe like almost going on 4 weeks. So it was a few weeks, 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks that I saw her video when I decided if I wanted to bring the reading into this channel. But I wanted to say that at that point, and I did mention this in my heads-up video, that later on that day, I wanted to pull cards and do my own personal reading to see actually what came up in terms of the alleged events in the moments leading up to Whitney's demise. And when I tell you that the cards that was drawn, they really left me very baffled, because they were they were accurate, I will say, but they also matched everything how Leola Brown interpreted verbally on her in that video. So how she interpreted verbally, my cards will give you, again, the visual interpretation of what actually allegedly happened leading up to Whitney's demise. So with that being said, being that these cards, or this reading that I did a couple of weeks back, was done already, I wrote down the cards that I recorded, the cards that was pulled pertaining to her reading, as well as Bobbi Kristina, and I took a record of it so that if I did decide to bring this video and this reading to this channel, I would know the cards that was pulled from that day. So, as I said, I was able to go back, pull them back out, and I have them laid out here on this board. And I thought that I would rather do it this way so you guys can follow the order of how the events took place leading up to Whitney's passing. Okay? So, I am going to actually switch sides because I am a righty. So, I am used to navigating and doing things with my right hand. Okay? So, as I mentioned, I just thought that was important for you to know that I was able to, it wasn't by memory, but I did remember after doing it that I did take a note of it so that, again, when I bring this to you, you would be able to know, and for myself to know the cost that was pulled. So, again, I mentioned that there was multiple people that was of interest surrounding Whitney's death. But when I channeled her reading and when I channeled the energy around her, there was one stronger energy that I channeled more than the other people that was surrounded. Okay, because Leola Brown did mention quite a few names out there, and just so you know, I will not, aside from Leola Brown, she would be the only name that I will mention going forward with this reading, but I will not be calling out other people's names other than Leola and Whitney. So for the person or the energy that I feel was connected and involved in the demise of Whitney, we will just leave it as the phrase, strong person of interest, okay? But at the same time, I want you to actually be involved in connecting the dots, connect the puzzle. If some of you that has been familiar and have had your own theory, your own opinions about who you may think was perhaps involved with her, with Whitney's passing, then you can connect the dots at any time as we go along with this reading, and you can kind of decipher for yourself or kind of in your way intuitively pick up who this person of interest is. Okay? So we're going to just leave it at that. So again, I picked up a stronger energy that was the strongest person of interest than the other people. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the energy was very dominant. That person showed up the strongest. And so, again, I pay attention. I let my intuition lead me. And then I just clarify what I sense with my cards. And my cards are my tool. They are an extension of my intuition. So I really have faith and confidence in what I feel as an empath. I really feel connected or emotionally when breaking down, interpreting what I saw. It was very emotional at times. And I do want to give you guys a heads up that if there's a moment of silence, it's because as I go through the cards, there may be a period of where I might be quiet. It's because at that time I'm sensing and just channeling as I channel the energy of Whitney and what it was that she went through during that time, that period, that moment of her attacker. I'm picking up on that, okay? So bear with me if at any time I need that moment, all right? Let's get started. Okay, so the first phase will be about the alleged events leading to Whitney Houston's demise. Okay, I was very specific and direct when I asked Spirit about what it was and asking about what happened leading up to the final moments of Whitney Houston. What happened? So these are just progressive periods of events that took place until to the very end of Whitney's demise. Okay, and so again, where and what cards that I'm using, the cards that was used to do this reading for both Whitney and her daughter came from these two decks, so the guys would know. So they came from the Lightseers deck, and it came from the Kipper deck. These were the only two decks that was used to get clarity onto the alleged event supposedly surrounding Whitney Houston. So I was able to get a visual understanding of what may have happened. Okay, so we're going to start off with the very first card that came out. I'm going to pull it up. You guys at any time feel free. I try to also angle the camera and to be at a distance as close as possible so you guys can really zoom in if you need to. If you see it clearly, that's good, but I got my pointer as I go along as I describe each card and the energy and the meaning behind them. So the first card that came out when I asked Spirit what was the events leading up to Whitney's altercation or to the actual attack that happened. And the first card that came out was the Hermit card, okay? The Hermit card. The Hermit card in different readings can mean many of things. Generally, it will mean, a moment, a solitude moment. It could mean rest. It can take on certain interpretations. But for this reading, this has to do with, in fact, an energy that was alone. An energy that, speaking of the stronger person of interest here, this person went somewhere to really think about a way to approach Whitney. Okay? I also picked up that this was a premeditated plan. This was premeditated in terms of wanting to take out Whitney Houston and to kill her. Okay, so the Hermit is a person that goes off in silence or just go into a place where they're alone to kind of figure out a scheme. They are plotting to see how they are going to orchestrate things. So they needed that time to kind of behind the scenes before the actual happening of this altercation. They needed to see how they was going to proceed ahead. Okay? Once they figured it out, then they were able to go ahead and approach Whitney Houston. The second card that came out after the Hermit card was the Three of Swords. When this card came out, and as I channeled the energy here, it made me teary-eyed. Now, Leola Brown was graphic and really telling you guys what she saw. Bear in mind also that Leola Brown will be privy to certain legal documents. She will be privy to autopsy reports, and as well, she was privy or was able to assess seeing Whitney Houston's body after all of this took place. So she was able to see things and read things that we, the public, would not have seen. But in her description of it on her channel in that video, Leola Brown mentioned that when Whitney was in fact up against, face to face with this attacker, that the condition of Whitney's body was very horrific. She described it as someone ripping her heart out, that her flesh was stripped. When you see the Three of Wands here, look very closely. You see here, stripped. You see here like the heart being stripped being torn, being ripped. This person had nails, but the heart, the flesh took a lot of beating, a lot of blows. The rage behind this person was very, very, very intense, to say the least. So when Leola Brown says that Whitney was, in fact, her flesh was ripped and torn, she was correct. This picture, a picture speaks 1,000 words. This picture really shows the condition or the time of this altercation with this strong person of interest. This person, like I said, had nails. This person acted in a very rageful energy. This person of interest, strong energy, came from a place that was very low vibrational. It was the shadow, but the more intense evil side of this person that attacked Whitney. Okay? Leola Brown mentioned that Whitney did fight. She put up a fight. Yes, she did. Because as I was shuffling, the card that came out, but it came out as a dropper, is what I call it. A dropper or a flipper, meaning that I didn't shuffle and then pull out. This card purposely came out. And the card that came out was the Knight of Wands. The Knight of Wands, and just so you guys know, the Wands is of fire energy. And just so you guys know, Whitney Houston was a fire sign of Leo. So she was a Leo. And this is the precise representation of Whitney here. So this is why I have this card off to the side, because it dropped off. This is Whitney Houston's energy, okay? This, her own energy came out here, representing that of the fire sign being a Leo. She definitely fought back, and she tried her hardest to, overtake this person. And as the lion, she didn't give up. She fought till the very end. And as a side note, her attacker was of an Aquarius, an air sign, an Aquarius. Okay? Before I proceed, as a sidebar, when channeling this person of interest that attacked Whitney, as a sidebar, I channeled that somehow this person had a gender change. Okay? That this person had a gender change to the masculine. To the feminine. So it was born a male, perhaps, and changed to the feminine energy. Okay? So for me, the true identity of this person is questionable. That's just a sidebar. If that turns out to be correct at a later time, somehow, it will make sense as to the intensity, as to how and why Whitney was not able to really overtake this person, because the attacker was very strong, okay? Very strong in size as well. And so it was so much that Whitney could do. Yes, she didn't just accept those blows. She fought like anybody else. I also channeled that this person threw Whitney off by surprise. Whitney didn't expect this person to come. I get the feeling that Whitney may have taken a nap, because we also, if you remember, this was the night, a couple of hours before the Grammys. So whether or not Whitney was going to perform, or she was just going to, be a part of it in some way or form, that she might have wanted to take a nap prior to. And maybe this person knew that she was going to go back up to her hotel room and take a nap. So I did pick that up, that Whitney definitely was caught off guard by this person. And that the person may have known, like I said, that she was going to take a nap. And that might have would have been for them the opportunity to go in, because this person, believe me, I believe, had the access to Whitney's room. This person had access. Okay, so this was a female energy here that attacked Whitney. This was a female energy here that attacked Whitney. And basically, this was a one-man show. A one-man show, meaning that this person was the one that came face to face with Whitney. Regardless that there was other people, I believe allegedly that this person was the one that attacked Whitney. And this was the one that Whitney had an altercation with. I didn't channel anybody else around when this altercation took place. So again, I believe that Whitney was caught off guard and that she was sleeping. And like anyone, when you are sleeping, taking a nap, you're in this subconscious state of mind. And so imagining, somebody coming to you, catching you off guard, you're off balance mentally, physically, it's kind of like waking up in the morning and you kind of got to make everything come together because everything is not quite balanced yet. So, your gait is off, your balance is off. You got to kind of shake it up and kind of give yourself a couple of minutes to open up your eyes. So I feel that Whitney, like I said, just had woken up, or when this person came in, that she was caught off guard by this person, and that this person did have access to her hotel room. So it was no issues there getting into her room. Okay? I think that this was a sneaky way in which this person wanted to approach Whitney. Okay? So, yes, Whitney did fight for her life, and she fought to the very end. The card that came out of, that is all I'm going to say about the Three of Swords. At the Three of Swords, this was a very rageful, kind of like a beast type of rage energy that did this to Whitney. Okay? That's as far as I'm going to go with that. I think you kind of can get the idea. From that, we go to the Judgment card. To me, this is Whitney. As Whitney passed away, as she transitioned, okay, this is Whitney's energy. She prayed that this person would get their karmic justice for doing what they did to her. I felt that at the very end, she prayed that somehow justice will be served for her death, and that the person will be found out, and that they will pay for what happened. I really channeled that and believe that Whitney prayed. We know Whitney was a spiritual person, so she was very much connected and in tune to her God and whoever she believed, but she prayed as she closed her eyes. And I even picked up that she may have even looked into the attacker's eyes and basically could have said, go to hell. I'm just saying that, And I say that because that was, to me, the energy or the attitude that she felt as she, passed away. And I think that's probably something that she could have said, but she was able to look into that attacker's eyes and say that, but at the same time, praying to her God that this person will pay for this heinous, rageful, beastly demon, pretty much, that went off on her. Okay? As we move down And we will get into that with the next part in terms of the motive behind why this took place. So moving down to the second, we have here, now this is after this altercation. Coming down to the second row, we have the Five of Swords. If you look, the Five of Swords is someone that is suffering from stress and anxiety. After this person did what they did, they were very panicky. They were very nervous because it's like, okay, now that this has been done, what's going to happen now? Okay, they were very, very, very nervous about whether they was going to be seen doing something that they weren't supposed to, but they was having headaches. This is just a lot of stress at the moment. You know, this is an energy when someone kills somebody. You know, you get nervous because you really don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know if you're going to be caught. You really don't know what the outcome will be. So you are very ruthered up and not knowing how things is going to work out. So it kind of puts you in a very panicky type of energy. And so this person here of interest, this was the energy. They had headaches. They were concerned. Not being concerned where they felt remorse for what they did, because this person did not have any remorse. They were just panicky and nervous about themselves and if they was going to be caught somehow after this all took place. Okay? And moving on from that, we move on to the Nine of Swords. So again, the person later on that night had sleepless nights. The person was up, wondering how things was going to unfold. If the plan was going to work out. So they had sleepless nights. The night, maybe for the first couple of nights, until things began to calm down. Which takes me to the King of Cups. Which takes me to the King of Cups. So prior to, they were very nervous and panicky. But once they felt that they kind of got away with it, and that things kind of went in a direction. Now we go back to those other persons of interest. So it's almost like it deflected from the strong person of interest, and then there were names that was put out there. And it was all like a distraction from the real person that was behind Whitney's demise. So once the person saw, they were very intent on looking at the news, following up. Okay. They also played a part in orchestrating certain people to make it look as if they had something to do with Whitney's death. And to a point, they may have, but they didn't physically cause this act. The strong person of interest did this all by themselves, if that makes sense. So again, the King of Cups shows an energy now where it's not as stressed. It's not showing any anxiety. And if you really look close, look at the expression on the face. It's almost like, yes, okay, things have calmed down now. And I think I'm good. I think this is going to be okay. Because now the media is pointing out other people. And it's not really pointing anything toward my direction. Okay? So the King of Cups, which is the person of interest energy, is acting as if things now is calmer. Things have slowed down. So they are out of this stressful, sleepless type of energy, and things are more calmer now. Okay? So that's what I get with that. Moving down, we go to what I will call the clarifier cards. Okay? These cards are coming from my Kipper deck, as I mentioned before. And I clarified each row. There are 3 rows. So I clarified each row in terms of the energy. And the card that came out for this column, for the Hermit and the Five of Swords, was thoughts. So just in case you can't see it, was thoughts, which clarifies that the person of interest did go into a moment by themselves to think about what it was and how they was going to approach Whitney's room without being seen. So they were very sneaky, but they also were strategic in a manner in which they had to think about how they were going to, not so much in having access, because I believe they had access to her room. It's a matter of, like anything else, how will I be able to go in and do the deed, this evil, heinous act, and then come out without being seen. So they put a lot of thought into it. As I said earlier, that this was a premeditated action on the part of this person of interest. Okay? So thoughts definitely clarifies this Hermit energy. Moving on to the second column to clarify the Three of Swords and your Knight of Swords, we have here fourth person. Okay? Fourth person. This person is, as I mentioned, is sneaky, but they are not who they appear to be. They have been a forced person quite some time around energy. Around energy. Having that energy, yes, around Whitney, pretending to like her, pretending to, as they were a part of her camp or a part of her entourage. They were really behind the scenes. They were not who they were. They were fake as can be. Okay? And they were camouflaging who they were behind the scenes. But deep down, they really hated Whitney. They hated her. It's one of those moments. To know that people will do and go to great lengths to do what they do because of a hate for someone. It's really heartbreaking. But this person didn't care at all about Whitney. Not at all. So this person's energy is fake. Okay? Moving on to the next column to clarify the Judgment and the King of Cups. You have main female. And that's what I channeled and tuned into, that there is a main female. So regardless, this is what I'm saying, is that regardless of what other persons of interest, whoever else may have been linked to Whitney Houston, and they may have hit a part, but they won't the main part. The main part was a female. This was a female energy that took out this rage, and it was a one-man type of, act toward Whitney. So Whitney was face-to-face, looking face-to-face with one person when this took place. Okay? So again, the person behind that was a main female. All right? So this pretty much sums up the interpretation of the alleged events or moments leading up to Whitney's demise. And before we move into the next phase about the motive, to add to what I just said, I will say that the media, regardless of what they put out there, and this was something that Leola Brown as well made mention of, the media expressed or put out there as the contributing factors of Whitney's death being drowning and drugs. I personally feel and channel that Whitney was clean. Okay? we as a whole, we don't, even if Whitney did do drugs, that was in the past. So if she did at some point in her life, but at some point in your life, people do clean up and they become sober and they begin to realize that they want to become a better version of themselves. And I truly feel that Whitney was leaning toward becoming something within herself that she wanted to do. It didn't happen when people wanted her to do it. But when she was good and ready, Whitney may have stopped, dibbling, dabbling in, the drugs or whatever else that, she may have done. But moving ahead in the future, people do at some point want to kind of clean up and so forth. And she may have, in her quest of, being more in tune with her spiritual self, it may have, taught her to just show her that, you can do this, come clean, and to just enjoy life for what it is, right? So I say that because I didn't channel that Whitney by no means have any drugs, anything in her body. She was clean. Now the part about her being drowned or drowning, no. I believe that her body was moved to appear as if she drowned. So again, going back to that person of interest, this is where a lot of planning, they had to really, this is why I'm saying it was premeditated. When you have a premeditated thought about doing something, it's like you have to think about as many angles as you can to kind of make it look like the perfect murder, right? You think about all scenarios. It just quickly, not to get off topic here, it just takes me back to Columbo. I love Columbo. And if those of you that also look at Columbo's, the detective, or lieutenant. I think he was a lieutenant. Yeah, Lieutenant Columbo. Yeah. So, I think about those series and those episodes where people go to great lengths. They have shown them, killing their own brother, their own sister, their own family member. But at the same time, when you look at it, they take so much time to plan it out so that it comes out looking flawless. They are trying to create the perfect murder, but in doing so where it doesn't come back to them or have any connection to them. So I just got that because it's like, this is the energy of what this person, this female, did. It was strategic planning on how they would be able to go into that hotel room, do what they need to do to make it look like something that it wasn't. And that's why I feel like her body was moved and put into the bathtub. This person, as I mentioned, was very strong and had the strength by itself to do so. It may have later on, it may have had someone to come in and to help, but this person would have been capable on their own to have done this, to move the body from wherever it was, maybe from the bed or a surface area near the bed, because I felt like, Whitney was taking a nap. And to put the body in the tub to make it look like she drowned from taking an overdose of drugs. And the two don't match. It's no connection there. This person wanted this to be, to them, in their mind, in their twisted mind, they wanted it to be the perfect murder. Okay? So, I say that because I know that the media, and this is something else that Leola Brown keep emphasizing, is yes, the media, they will only tell you, the public, what they want to know. They're not going to ever give you the true facts about it. And if you notice, when it comes to regular average people, they don't do that. They will give you like the facts of what it is. But when it comes to these celebrities, they are always going to give you another story to make it look like something else. That right there should be a huge clue that something is just not right when it comes to this type of industry, because Whitney comes from the music industry. So when tapping into the music industry and all things that connects to it, even with the media, to a point, they have connections and some type of involvement when it comes to how they want to present and produce a story surrounding a celebrity. It's like all in cahoots, if that makes sense. They are all in cahoots, basically. So they are not to be trusted. There's a lot of dark energy and a lot of low vibratory actions that take place behind the scenes, even when it comes to the media. Okay? All right. So that is what and how I interpreted the first phase of this here. And that was what allegedly may have happened leading up to Whitney's demise. Now we're going to move on to phase 2. And phase 2 is the motive. Okay, the motive. Let me just get a sip of water. And I'm just going to be looking at my notes just to make sure that I am going into the order in which I want to do this. Yes. So the motive, phase 2 of the reading. I asked Spirit, what was the motive behind this strong person of interest? What was the motive, Spirit, that this person did this heinous act of evil? And the first card that came out was gift. Gift. Not a physical gift or a present that you give to somebody. It's a natural talent, a gift that a person exudes or have. And we all know the gift that Whitney was known for, her voice. Her voice. Whitney's gift was her voice. She had a gift of singing like an angel. Right? So the motive was her gift. That was the very first thing that this person motive or was jealous of Whitney. It goes back again to forced person. This person pretending to love Whitney, to be in support of Whitney, when in actuality they put on a false face, because on the outside they appeared that way, but inside is a whole nother type of bones. Okay? The bones was very broken. The bones was disrupted. The bones was very, very evil. So that's why they will put on this mask to pretend that they cared for Whitney when in fact they did not. They were very jealous. They were very envious of her voice. That was the first thing, her voice. The other motive, or the other areas or things that they were jealous of that created this motive of doing what they did, was it had the second card that came out was occupation. So the line of work, or just basically what Whitney did, you know, going out there to give her best performance, going out there and working and putting her best foot forward when she would come out on stage. That was what she did. Her occupation was a singer, a celebrity singer, you know, that was her area. So she was jealous of her about what she did for a living, being a singer. Because to her, it's like easy money, if that makes sense. Maybe this person, you know, whatever they do or did, they felt like, you know, they had to, it was more involved to what they do occupation-wise. But when they looked at Whitney, they see her occupation as an occupation that was something that all she had to do was just step out and just open her mouth and sing. She made it look easy. Whitney made it, look easy for her to just come out on stage and just be the best voice there was. Okay? So this person had a problem with what they did for a living, but they looked at what Whitney did for a living. So again, along with the voice and what Whitney did, the next card that came out was Lovers. Lovers in this scenario, in this reading, is the fact that Whitney was loved globally. She was loved and had tons and tons of fans. She was very well loved. So in this scenario, it's not about, like a relationship type of love, a partnership. This is just the fact, when I picked up and channeled, this just means that Whitney had people that loved her. So this person was jealous that she had this attention, that she had this love going on, where this person was just behind the scenes, following, being a shadow of Whitney, while Whitney is out there in the front, being loved by many people. Okay? We move on from the Lovers to House. So this person also was jealous of Whitney Houston's material assets, her material things, her home, her mansion, her big house, whatever size it was. This person was jealous of her house. Maybe the house she lived in. Even if she had a house, it wasn't as big and beautiful as Whitney's house. Because you can see this house here. It's very, massive in a sense. It's, it stands out. It shows a person who is doing quite well, a person of wealth, who has a nice house, who can afford it, right? And then from there, the other card that came out that showed what else this person was envy and jealous of, which drove them to wanting to end Whitney, was we have sudden wealth. This person felt that, again, Whitney's way of obtaining success and wealth was something that was easy, that came with her. All she had to do was just open her mouth, and she pretty much, became wealthy because of it. So she actually as well, so that's one aspect of it, but also of her money. She was jealous of her money, the wealth that she has accumulated over the years because of her mouth, because of what comes out of her mouth, her voice. So going back to the person's motive is the voice, what she did, the world having fans, people loving her, and her house and her wealth, her money. She was very jealous. So all of this that Whitney had, it drove this person to wanting to take her out. It was as if they couldn't take it no more. So the days leading up to Whitney's death, it was like, well, how come this didn't happen before? Or what was it? It had built up. I believe this person may be suffering with some kind of repressed and, mental type of issues, but it stems from inside. But all along, the person has been wearing a veil, right? The person has been wearing a veil all those years. And now when we move down to the additional cards that came out to kind of clarify all of this, the Moon card came out, which tells me that they couldn't take it no more. Their true side had to come out. The Moon is about things coming out. So what she held inside, the person of interest, the hate and the jealousy that she had been hiding all these years, it was time for it to be shown, her real self. Even though The world at this time may not see it, or they didn't see it. In other words, it may take a moment before it comes to the public or to the world. It will be revealed. The aspect of the moon is her, the strong person of interest, where she couldn't take it no more. It was like it was killing her. That rage that was inside of her, it leached and came out. It reminds me of the Incredible Hulk. We all know about the Incredible Hulk show, right? The rage. It takes, what gets him to that point is, he tries hard, right? It's like he tries hard before changing. He tries to tame himself. He tries to calm himself, right? But after a point, it reaches a point where it's like it can't take it no more, and it just bursts open. So that's the best way I can describe the person's energy. They couldn't contain wearing this mask no more. They had to just come out and let it all out, and they let it out in such a beastly, rageful manner to Whitney. Right? The moon. It was time for them to show their true colors. This is another moment. It was time for them to show their true colors. They couldn't. The beast inside them had to come out and do this here to Whitney. And we move on to the Knight of Pentacles. The Knight of Pentacles, again, is an energy of tapping into the wealth that Whitney Houston had obtained and what she had. It was the money that they couldn't. I don't know if this person, how well their money situation was or what, but they was looking at the money, the coins that generated from Whitney. So the money was just too much for them to kind of hold inside. And then we go over to the Star card. The Star is a major arcana in the tarot, and the Star shows, this is Whitney's energy, the Star here. The Star shows that's what Whitney was in her own right. She was a star, a shining star. And when she opened her mouth, you get chills over you. Okay? I don't know if some of my audiences and viewers is of a younger age group where you may not, if you are from a later era in the 2000s or what have you, later, in the 2000s, you were just kind of young and you are looking at this, unless you come across a video or you come across something where you are actually hearing Whitney sing. But for those of her generation, and just really just being true fans of Whitney, we know that she was the incomparable voice. Her voice was amazing. It was something to it was just so beautiful, and the stardom that she had and who she was, I always looked at her as someone graceful, how she approached the stage and the long gowns and, her whole demeanor and the way she approached the stage when she would begin to perform, but this person was jealous of the star she was. And then the card that actually came from the bottom of the deck was the World card. This was, again, Whitney's energy here. She was the star to the world. She was everything to her fans, myself included. She would go out on that stage and she was known around the world. I believe Whitney may have, I'm not sure if she's toured like outside of the U.S., if she's gone on, like international tours. I'm not sure. She may have. But even if she didn't, the world knew her. The world knew her. Okay, so this is what I have interpreted in terms of the alleged events taking place moments before her demise. Okay, as I said, I intuitively channeled these messages, and I feel that it makes sense. And guys, if you haven't, I would still suggest you go over to YouTube, to Leola Brown's channel, and hit that video where she talks about this, when she verbally kind of breaks down what she felt took place and what happened. And so then you can better understand the graphic part of the cards visually, as I have interpreted what may have allegedly took place as well. All right. So that ends the first and the second phase of this reading for Whitney. And last but not least, before we move on, let me just make sure that I did cover and just point out what I wanted to say. So before we get to the third phase, my additional notes was pretty much in summing up the first two phases we went through, was that this person of interest, this female, just again emphasizing the jealousy, the envy that they had for Whitney. Okay, and they were basically comparing. They were looking like at their life in comparison to what she had. It was like comparing, the phrase, apples to oranges. Okay, and again, the person coming to a point of negative thoughts, indicating insecurities, or, as I mentioned, repressed issues. Okay, and as the days that led down and wind down to that, I just felt that those emotions began to resurface more strongly. Because like I said, some might say, well, how come if this person had so much hate toward Whitney, how come, this didn't happen sooner? Again, it was all built up. It was repressed until such time came that they couldn't take it no more. Okay? Yeah, I think that is it. That's what I wanted to add on to that. So again, there was very intense jealousy to the max, to the point where they acted out. Okay, and they acted out, as you can see, in a very big, rageful, hateful way. Okay. So that's what I got from those two parts or two phases of Whitney's reading. Now we are going to go to the last phase of this reading, which is phase 3. And phase 3 will be about the note. I know, me and myself included, during that time, taking you back to the day that Whitney Houston, which people thought that she walked in and interrupted the interview that was going on a couple of hours prior to or after. No, it was prior to. Yes, it was before, right? So it was before the Grammy Awards. There was an interview that was going on with Brandy, Clive Davis in the middle, and then on the other end was Monica, the singer. And you see Whitney coming in and handing Brandy a note. I did some research and I came across where it says that when the media or when people speculated that she just came in and just like interrupted, I read that she didn't interrupt. So it was basically where whoever was interviewing Brandy and Clyde and Monica, it could have been whatever news media was interviewing them, that they had finished that take and they were like taking a break to reset to, I guess, before another take. But I read that Whitney was very respectful and she waited behind the scenes until they wrapped up that tape. And then she came and approached Brandy, or she may have hugged all of them, but we know the most curious thing that she did that struck a lot of curiosity was when she did in fact hand Brandy a note. And there has been so many speculations, curiosities as to what the note contained, what it may have contained, and whether or not Brandy would ever reveal the contents of the note. So, we are going to interpret with my intuition what I channeled and what I feel, allegedly what the note may have been about. Okay? So before I get into the cards, I wrote my note here. And here I said that the note was a warning. What I feel that what was contained in the note and what it may have been about. It was a warning to Brandy. And to me, it was about letting Brandy know. It was like a heads up. Whitney, I don't know how true it is. Whitney, I don't know if Brandy was like Whitney's step-goddaughter or whatever it was, but I will say that Whitney really liked Brandy a lot. She really did. It was just like her other daughter, aside from Bobbi Kristina, okay? And she really, really liked her a lot. But at the same time, she felt Brandy was still young in terms of knowing more about the industry. Okay, she felt that she was still kind of green. Now, Brandy, I believe at this time is around 43 years old. So going 10 years back, that would put Brandy being 33 years old. Okay, 33, 34, but I think 33 when I broke it down. And so with that being said, you may say, well, Brandy was, a mature woman. Yes, but when you look at, Whitney's age compared to Brandy, it's like an age gap, right? But Whitney looked at her as being green, not knowing really how the industry is. And so to me, I felt that she looked at her as being young and still having to know and learn things. But I felt that the note was a warning to let her know about the secret society part of the music industry. Okay? And that there's a lot of dark energy. Things are not what it seems. There are a lot of things behind the scenes that goes on that may look like it's genuine and of love and light, but really it's dark. Okay? So things are not what they appear to be. And so with that being said, now we're going to go over to the cards and we're going to break this down. So again, I felt that the note was a warning. Oh, and also I felt that the note that Whitney was strategic. And what I mean by that is I don't feel that Whitney wrote down names in the note, but she still got her point across with a subliminal message, if that makes sense. So there was like a subliminal message that she wrote down in the note. But she did so strategically so as to not, just in case, it was like she was protecting Brandy. And she wasn't sure, maybe later on, if the note would go into the wrong hands or whatever it was. But Whitney was very strategic in what she pointed out. But she made her point across. And it was giving Brandy a heads up as to what she felt Brandy needed to know moving forward. Because she felt that Brandy would be around and still involved with the industry, but she kind of wanted to give her, like I said, an idea of what to look out for, like a cautionary type of warning proceeding ahead in this industry. So with that being said, we move on now to the cards. So when asked about this note, the first cards that came out was a main male. Okay, I'm sorry. Main male that came out. We got community that came out. Then we got mature woman that came out. And then great fortune that came out. Okay, so that's what came out. But before I go into describing what they mean, I'm going to go down to the card that came out under that. Under these cards was a message of concern. If you look real closely, this is a woman here. This will be Whitney's energy here, representing Whitney Houston. This is her having a note. So maybe that note was something that she thought about doing, because somehow I feel that Whitney was getting a premonition about herself, but she sensed something that made her want to write whatever she wrote in that note and to give it to Brandy. You know, between Brandy and Monica, she was more closer and really liked Monica a whole lot. So she handed the note to Brandy. But I feel that Whitney somehow, deep down, a gut feeling, like she had a premonition that something wasn't right and that something was going to go down. And she felt that just in case she wouldn't be around to kind of protect Brandy, she felt like, let me put my piece out. Let me express how I feel. And at the same time, give you a heads up, a warning about this industry, this dog-like industry, with doggy dog world, so to speak. And that is the type of energy that is going on in the music industry. So I felt that Whitney did, in fact, have some type of a premonition, and she felt something wasn't right. Okay? So with that being said, when you look at this picture here, this imagery, it shows a woman having a note, right? And it's like she just took it out from her chest. You know how some women, they put a note or they put, even money inside their bra or inside their, upper chest. So I felt like until Whitney was able to get to Brandy, that somehow she may have had this note somewhere in her chest. So from the message, so she was concerned. So this is message of concern. So I feel like Whitney was concerned about Brandy, and she was concerned as well about what now she feel is going to happen. Okay? The card from there is child. This is Brandy. No, Brandy is not a child. Brandy was not a child 10 years back when Whitney handed her the note. But a child in a sense where I felt that, as it shows, it was someone younger, which Brandy was. Brandy was younger than Whitney, right? So she handed it to someone that was younger than her, which was Brandy. But also I felt that she felt that Brandy was still kind of green to the industry. Even though Brandy came out in the industry when she was young, a teenager. I think when she was 16, she came out. Or came out like with her first album and so forth. So even though she was still kind of used to this before this happened, but in Whitney's mind, she felt like, let me protect her. Let me give her a heads up, because there are things that I see that she may not see. and I want to warn her. It's almost like that saying, being forearmed is to be forewarned. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. To be forearmed, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. I think that's how it goes. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. So it's almost like giving her a heads up again that this industry that you are in and will probably continue to be in for some time, it's not what it appears to be. Okay? So yes, the child showed up because to me this is Brandy, her handing the note to someone younger than her. Now we move on to message. This was the actual message. So the message here is the handing the message over to Brandy. Okay, this was the actual message. It wasn't sealed. You know, I believe it was a note. It wasn't like put in an envelope. I don't recall it being, you know, like put in an envelope or whatever it does. It was almost like it was done on a spur to moment as well. I get that feeling too, that it wasn't something that she thought about, you know, like nights before or weeks before or months before. I feel like this was a spur to moment type of thing that Whitney wanted to do because she just felt that something is going to happen. And she just wanted to kind of write down her thoughts in terms of warning Brandy. So this is why this envelope is not sealed, because the note was not sealed in an envelope. It was just a note on a piece of paper that was handed to Brandy. And then we move over to coffin. Whether or not Whitney, I do feel that Whitney may have mentioned to Brandy that someone attempted, or she feels that she will die. I do pick that up. That she felt either someone attempted something that gave her that feeling, or she felt something wasn't right, that she may die. And this is why coffin is here. And I'm kind of leaning toward that she thought that I am going to die. And it's going to be soon. And next to it is bad health. So when this came out, I had to take a couple of minutes to channel bad health. What is that? What is the message trying to tell me there? So to me, it means that this industry, because it's so dark, it will do things for their own gain when it comes to money. And it's like, if you want to stay successful in that industry, in the music industry, you want to stay on top, you have to make certain sacrifices. You would have to be able to do things that you may not want to do, but sometimes the pressure or that lower self gets the best of you, and you find yourself doing things that you might regret later on. But if you take a stand and stand up to one's morals and say, I'm going to refuse, no, even if it means the end of my career, if it means the end of, you know, me being a star, a celebrity, whatever it means, then I'm willing to do it because this is not me. So bad health, I had to channel, and I felt that if people that are in this industry, if they do not kind of do what they need to do to stay relevant, to stay successful, that those that are involved into that lower dark energy, they will bring bad health to you. It's almost like there's a price to pay. Okay? There is a price to pay to be famous. There's always a price to pay to be a star, to be a celebrity, to have money, to be in the public eye. There will be a price to pay, particularly somehow with the music industry. Somehow with that industry, it's a whole lot of dark secrets that goes on. And if you don't ride along with them, then you will find yourself falling off the bandwagon. You are bandwagon, and you find yourself where you are not getting, signed, where you are not getting, where maybe your record sales is decreasing. Things will start to be affected, basically, if you don't keep it up. And so that note to me was a warning, letting Brandy know that perhaps, if she continues on, don't be surprised that you may find yourself not being as relevant, not as popular no more. Things will begin to be affected because maybe once she feels that once she finds out that somehow her career would be affected. This is why also I feel that Brandy has not come out to the public to reveal the contents of the note. I feel that Brandy is protecting herself right now. She feels it might be unsafe and kind of risky to come out to the public to maybe reveal the contents of what this warning was and the details of it. Whether or not I feel if Brandy will ever reveal, if she do, it will still be a few years. It would be when she may have retired and just have walked away entirely from the industry. And when she's a little bit older, when she feels that there's nothing else to fear or to be at risk of. Because right now, if she was to do it, or even back then, 10 years ago, her career could have been at risk. So this is why I feel that she has been hum and not ready to reveal what the contents of that note was. But if she does, it will be a few years later that she might reveal it to the public. So closing out this, we're going to now go back up to the top cards, to the main male, community, mature woman, and great fortune. So when speaking about things being tampered with or things that will be affected, because the person here, this energy, is a person who's connected to this industry, is very rich. Great fortune is somebody who's quite a lot, maybe close to a billionaire. This energy here, great fortune. Great fortune is great fortune to the max. So this person's either a billionaire or close to being a billionaire. So which means to me that this person here, which I believe is a male energy, maybe a mature man, someone who's been in this business for some time, is behind or has control, I should say, control behind some involvement with the industry and so forth. And she was basically just wanting Brandy to know, that you really don't have control as you think you do. You don't have control of your music or whatever it is, however that goes. They can affect royalties, anything in terms of the music and whatever's connected to it. But this person is very rich, worth has a triple amount of money, who has control over the industry, who has an influence of the industry. And at any time, they will be able to control and pull her off, like remove her to something that less than what she is, if she continues to be a part of this industry. Okay? Then we have community. To me, community meant that Whitney really didn't care if Brandy shared the contents of the note. I get the feeling that Brandy left it to her discretion. I really feel, again, that Whitney did not really care. Community is about sharing, letting the community know of something. So I feel that Whitney actually want to, as she felt comfortable to do, or when she felt comfortable to do, to share the contents of that note. But Whitney didn't really care. She just was wanting to just give her a heads up and she will basically do as she will when the time is right. That's what I also pick up as well. Then we go down to mature woman. So to me, when I look at mature woman, I feel that there was a woman that perhaps Whitney, well, not perhaps, I feel that Whitney mentioned that there was a woman that was involved or will be involved, either was or will be involved in her downfall, or in terms of taking her out. So it kind of gave her, like, again, a clue, a slight clue that there's a woman that is surrounded by me, in my camp, part of my entourage, that will be involved in taking me out. And this person, no doubt, is connected, or somehow they were in cahoots in the plotting and scheming of taking Whitney out once and for all. Okay? That's what I got. I'm just looking at my notes to make sure there was no other details that I wanted to stress at this time. And pretty much that is it, everyone. That is the breakdown, my version or my interpretation of how I channeled the messages and what I feel strongly about, and how I was able to channel what I think the alleged events and how they unfolded and what led to her demise. Before we take a brief intermission, I just want to also say that I do believe that because in the beginning I did say that the family didn't have closure, I do feel at some point that Leola Brown may, if Whitney's case haven't been closed, or if it has been closed, I do get the feeling that Leola will want to reopen the case and want to go further and deeper into investigating, finding the person responsible for Whitney's death. And overall, I feel that it will all be for the namesake of bringing justice for Whitney Houston. And if I feel personally that justice will be served, I believe so. I believe justice will be served. I believe sooner than later. Now, sooner don't mean days, weeks. It may take a few months, a couple of months, within the year, perhaps, that this person will face their judgment, as Whitney prayed at the end, that justice be served and that judgment come upon the person. Yes, I believe that judgment, this person will face their karma. All right, everyone. That brings me to the end, the first part of this reading of Whitney Houston. If you have any comments or anything you would like to say, feel free to drop them into the comment section. Again, ultimately, Allah is the final. He will always be the final one that will see the fate of the evil that people bring to other people. We're going to take a brief intermission. I'm going to reset, and then we will proceed to part 2, decoding the alleged events of Bobbi Kristina. See you momentarily. Hey everyone, welcome back. Welcome back from our intermission, as I took a break to reset and to prepare for our second part of this special reading, Decoding the Death of Whitney Houston. And now we are on to decoding the death of her daughter, Bobbi Kristina. So I already cleansed the space between us, and I have some incense here steady going on at this time. I did use the same cards from my 2 decks that I used to interpret and channel messages for Whitney's reading, which was from my Light Seers deck and from the Kipper deck. No other decks I use to channel messages and to interpret what was the alleged events that happened surrounding Bobbi Kristina's injuries and the coma. Before we get into the reading, there were 2 aspects that I wanted to mention. Actually, one aspect that was a part of the note that we went over coming to the end of Whitney's reading. If you recall, I did mention that when it came to that note, when Whitney handed it to Brandy, in terms of Brandy, if she was going to reveal the contents at a later time, if she ever will, or just her reflecting upon the note that was involved, or the contents of the note that was involved when Whitney handed it to her. I do feel and believe that over time, Brandy did pay attention, and as a result, Brandy has years later, I think recently in the past 2 years, I have read and understood that Brandy now has her own label under Brand New. And when I was reading about that, she was basically expressing that now she has freedom. She is free. If you recall in that reading, when I was breaking down how Whitney was strategic and about the contents of the note, I mentioned that when given Brandy a heads up how the industry was, very dark, and how that basically they are in control of the artists. The artists really don't have control, especially if they are under someone else's label. So this just kind of takes me back to that, and I feel that Brandy may have in some way, something may have went wrong, or maybe she was starting to now understand the subliminal message that Whitney was trying to tell her 10 years ago. And as a result, like I said, she now has created her own record label. So to me, that says a lot. That speaks volumes in terms of her wanting control, and eventually her understanding the scenes, the things that go on in that industry. Okay, so that was something that I didn't mention, and I just wanted to put it out there. So now let us proceed and move on to the second part of the reading, decoding the alleged moments around Bobbi Kristina. Okay, so I will say right off the bat that her reading, or part of the reading, won't be as extensive as Whitney's was. Whitney had a lot of phases. She had a lot of things that went on that made her reading a little bit more extensive. But with Bobbi Kristina, to me, it's very straightforward, but it also centers around the strong person of interest that was involved with Whitney's reading surface or is showing up again surrounding Bobbi Kristina. Let me repeat that. The person that I remained or wanted to not mention, but I refer to as the strongest person of interest that showed up and was spoke about throughout Whitney's reading, will again appear and has appeared again with Bobbi Kristina's reading. Okay? And unlike Whitney Houston, where I felt that it was a one-man show and that there was one person that ultimately led to Whitney's demise, when it comes to Bobbi Kristina, there were a few people, I pick up maybe 3 or 5 people that was around when this altercation happened with Bobbi Kris. I'm going to look at my notes here before we get into the breakdown of the cards here. So, as I said, I feel that there were other people around her and Nick at the time that a fight broke out. Because here, the card that came out first was the Tower card. Okay? We're going to get into it as I also bring the board closer to the screen. I feel that, yes, Nick initiated the conflict with Bobbi Kristina. But others took part as well in the beating, in the conflict, in the altercation as well. So I feel and sensed other energies definitely around Bobbi Chris. So it wasn't just like Bobbi Kristina and Nick. It wasn't like they had a fight, a lover's quarrel, and they got into an altercation. No, there are other people around. But speaking of that strong person of interest, that person, that strong person of interest, had a lot to do with the influence of prompting, pushing Nick to do what he did, or to at least be involved. Okay, and we're going to get into it. So although Nick was involved with the fight, he really didn't want to continue. I believe that this strong person of interest that we spoke about strongly with Whitney's reading, I believe he was heavily influenced to engage in this behavior. I really feel as well that Nick wanted out. He got nervous and overwhelmed. Before we proceed, because the rest of the notes will kind of help wind down my final thoughts of the events and what took place winding down toward Bobbi Kris's demise. So, let's go to the cards. So, again, the first card that came out when I pulled was the Tower card. Okay? The Tower card is an energy of something that is unexpected, something sudden, something you don't see coming, but also it's something destructive. So in this sense, when it came down to it, there was a moment, just as I felt Whitney Houston was off guard, I believe as well, Bobbi Kristina was caught off guard. She didn't know what was coming. She didn't know pretty much what hit her. She couldn't understand, as she knew and saw Nick charging at her, and inflicting, certain blows and certain contacts toward her. It was like she couldn't understand what it was all about, because it was sudden. It was something that was sudden and something that she didn't expect. Okay? So I'm actually going to go down. Instead of going across, I'm going to just go down. We have 3 columns here, and I'm going to kind of just go down. So we go down to the 3 of Swords, which was the same energy card that came out for Whitney. The 3 of Swords is an energy. When you look at the imagery, 3 of Swords is pain that has been inflicted. Pain that was inflicted to Bobbi Kristina. Okay? And I feel and believe when I really channeled, and took a moment to really see how intense and how far things went with that fight, with that altercation. Nick initiated it, or was initiated by him, but I believe the other energies that was around, they as well took a Nick. So it's like he started, another person came, they punched her, whatever else. I really don't want to get that graphic and intense with it, but other people took a turn. It's almost like everybody took a turn toward the blows that they were inflicting on her. Okay? And Bobbi Kristina, she's very fragile. It was so much she could do. I do feel, though, that she did try to escape. Okay? I'm going to just come out of sequence because it's what I'm feeling intuitively and what makes sense. So I feel we go over here to the Eight of Swords here. The Eight of Swords is someone that is tied or strapped. I don't know per se if her hands was tied. I don't think so, but I do see that she tried to escape. She tried to come out of, try to get away from this, try to run away, that is. And that's when she tried to run away, that's when things got intense. Going back to the strong person of interest, as I said, really influenced Nick to do this heinous behavior, to go through this act. The aim was to kill Bobbi Kristina. Just like with Whitney. The scheme, the plot, as well, this was something that was premeditated. After they took Whitney out, then the next thing was to take out her daughter. Okay? But things didn't quite turn around as they thought it would. Unlike with Whitney, it was successful in a sense where, the person took her out. With Bobbi, it was the initiation was just, it wasn't completed. So they didn't completely take Bobbi Kristina out. It wasn't successful. It didn't quite go as planned, as they thought. The strong person of interest that I'm referring to, this female energy, was very much behind Nick's involvement toward this behavior. He was like a little puppet, a puppy or a puppet, and he was being strong. So you had, like a puppet or a muppet, however you want to call it, muppet, puppet. And then there was the big person, the real instigator behind the scenes that was kind of like stringing him along, bribing him if need be, that he would get something if he carried this out. Maybe they offered him money, or something like that. Or it was like, well, when all this is done, you will get some parts of it. So, like anything else with some people, if they are hurting for money, depending on the condition, they will take a risk and a chance to get like that quick money, a quick fix. But nonetheless, I truly, strongly believe that he wanted out. He didn't really want to get involved with this scheme, with this plotting to end Bobbi Kristina. Okay? Bobbi Kristina, after she suffered and went through those blows, it may have put her in a temporary unconscious state, but it was not a severe, deep coma as, again, the media want to play out to be. I truly believe, and Leola Brown as well mentioned it, she felt that, or not felt, she knew because she had visited her at the hospital, and she said that Bobbi Kristina had come out of the coma. So it was just something temporary. It wasn't as severe as the media made it to be. Again, the media will only tell you what they feel they want to tell you for that point in time because they are covering up something else. And it's always about a distraction from something else, but they will never really give you what it is. They will tend to make things up that will work for their benefit. But when it comes to Bobbi Kristina, the injuries that she did sustain, they were brutal, I believe she as well suffered very brutally. The beating, I think she was, I felt that they was kicking involved. They kicked her in her heart, in her chest. They kicked her. And as I said, Bobbi Kristina, very fragile, She wasn't, a very strong, big girl. She was tiny, petite. So the blows that she sustained, they really affected her. Okay? She was really affected by the blows. So, yes, I feel that Nick Gordon did initiate and was one of the main people that did inflict those blows and had this fight and this, moment with her. But I believe there were other people around that as well, like I said, took turns to get involved in it, because I felt maybe they was going to be paid. And if they were already had money, I just felt that, again, it was like a cahoots type of energy where everybody had a part to play in some kind of way. How they were going to make out or how it was going to benefit them, I'm not quite sure. But again, there were other people around. Unlike with Whitney, where I felt there was one strong energy that was around, unlike with Bobbi Kris, there were other people around. So, as I said, when thinking about, I didn't ask particularly what was the motive, but just kind of wanting to understand why this was being done to her. And it wasn't so much Nick. Nick didn't have a motive. The motive stemmed from the motive that was set from Whitney. Jealousy. But because it involved her daughter, Bobbi Kristina, it's like one down, now we're going to go after the daughter. But also the strong person of interest was very much looking at Bobbi Kristina as another miniature or mini Bobbi Kristina as another Whitney, if that makes sense. So Bobbi Kristina, when she was, I think when Oprah interviewed her, she spoke about, her following in the footsteps of her mom. And, she had a plan. She had a goal. She was very much wanting to sing. I believe that she did sing. I think she may have been on the verge of, coming out with some music or something like that. But she was very much following in the footsteps of her mom. Okay? We have here the Knight of Wands. This is Bobbi Kristina's energy here. The Knight of Wands. It kind of looks like her with the long hair, and, this picture here shows this young lady, petite as Bobbi Kristina. Bobbi Kristina just had a very happy, joyful aura about her. She was like a happy girl until evil began to lurk around her. And again, all of this went down stemming from Whitney Houston. Okay? So, I believe that Nick Gordon, on his own, would not have went to extremes and would not have even thought about doing this to Bobbi Kristina. Yes, they may have as a couple, they were dating, they were together, relationship, as young couples do. They in, they out, they fight. But that as far as it would have went. Nick Gordon was very much controlled by that person, that strong person of interest, under that person's influence, very heavily. Okay? So, getting back to Bobbi Kristina, like I said, she was like an upcoming star, making her own mark, so to speak, onto the scene. Because we also have over here, we have the Six of Wands. The Six of Wands is someone that is on stage, having their limelight, being in the spotlight, being recognized. So basically, she was going to be like another Whitney Houston in her own right. Okay? So again, when you look at this energy here, the energy of that strong person, again, was jealous. Because again, it's about envy. It's about stemming from what hate and jealousy they had in their heart about Whitney Houston. It kind of crossed over to Whitney Houston's daughter. So it's like, I took care of Whitney. let me take care of the next thing. I see the seed sprouting and becoming like another Whitney. So I want to take her out as well. But in doing so, the plan didn't quite work because Bobbi Kristina, unlike her mom, didn't pass away due to those injuries. She didn't pass away instantly due to those injuries. She was badly, hurt and injured and went into a coma. But I do believe that she did come out, and the coma wasn't as long as the media make it seem. The media says that she was in a coma for 6 months. I don't believe that. I channeled that this was a very temporary kind of subconscious state that she was in, where she did regain consciousness and that she was very well alert. Okay? Once the person of interest found out that Nick, who was ultimately the one that was going to be involved to take Kristina out, once the plan didn't go, then it was almost like they then had to now go ahead and do the dirty work themselves. Up here we have the Nine of Wands. I didn't speak about this energy. The Nine of Wands now coming over to the last row, to this other column here. At the top, we have the Nine of Wands. The Nine of Wands is a fire energy, okay? This fire energy is, I believe, this female that now feels like you didn't fulfill and carry out killing Kristina. Now I have to finish up your work. The person was very, very upset, very mad that it didn't quite go the way that they wanted to. And so, like anything else, it was one of those things where they says, if you want to do it right, do it yourself. So the person went and would go and finish out killing Bobbi Kristina, if that makes sense. Down below, crossing back over to this card, we have the Five of Pentacles. To me, this is the energy of Nick. Okay, the Five of Pentacles. And remember, in tarot, there's no specific gender. So it could be masculine energy or feminine energy. So even though you see like a female energy here, this is Nick's energy. Okay, Nick energy here is, he's starting to feel pressured, or he feels a certain way because it's like that person is telling him, you didn't, like a child, like beating him across the head, basically saying, you didn't do it right. You didn't do it. This is what you should have done, and you didn't carry it out. So it was almost like he was disciplined from that strong person of interest, and he's feeling a certain way about it. Okay? And so it left him not only feeling, like he was being disciplined, because just to say for the note that both Bobbi Kristina and Nick were water signs. Nick was a Scorpio, and Bobbi Kristina was a Pisces. So they both were water signs. But from what I have read about Scorpio men, they don't really like to they don't like to be controlled, and to kind of be in that position where someone is dominating them. Okay? And so to me, this is him feeling very like he's out of control, like the control is out of his hands. But he's feeling lost here, like what's the next step? Because really he don't have much say. But the strong person of interest, again, is like disciplining him, beating him over the head, saying, this wasn't supposed to turn out this way, and because of it, you're going to pay. You know what I mean? So they had to take it upon themselves to now go and to take out Bobbi Kristina. But I do feel that Bobbi Kristina was very much alert, that her coma wasn't as long and drawn out as they make it seem to be, and that there were periods of time that she was awake and alert. And because of it, it made everyone involved, the person, particularly for the person of interest, the strong person of interest here, involved, made them to take them back into a state of panic, nervousness. Because Bobbi Kristina, I believe, she knew what happened. She knew who her attackers was. She knew all that was involved in that altercation. And so, of course, if she was going to survive her injuries and come out of, the hospital, that more than likely, what will happen? She will talk and tell. So the strong person of interest couldn't have that. They couldn't take a chance of risking Bobbi Kristina to be able to come out of this state, this condition, where she can go home and talk and kind of give people's names up who was involved in that. Because clearly, then it will take them right back to the person of interest here. Okay? So that is what we got here in terms of a little bit of why this was done, because the person of interest, the female, feel like Bobbi Kristina was an upcoming, or was going to be like an upcoming mini version of her mom. And again, that kind of triggered her jealousy and her envy to wanting to take her out. Okay? Now we're going to go down to the bottom, and these are my clarifying cards, and into understanding how Nick really truly felt about all of this. So we have here the main male. So definitely he was the main male involved in this plot, in this scheme of taking Kristina out, Bobbi Kristina. We move over to concern. Now this is where things begin to take a turn for the worse, okay, pertaining toward him. So he began to really truly have concern about how things was going. I really feel, despite the fact of him being involved in her, being involved in that altercation, in that fight, I truly believe that it had a lot to do with the influence and the pressure that was put on him to do this. But deep down, Nick was not that kind of a hater to have gone to that extreme. Okay? We have here occupation. So I believe he felt a concern that the job that it called for him to do this, he felt like this was a very low down kind of bad job to do, or to be involved in some type of a scheme, a plot, a scheme toward Bobbi Kristina. I really feel that he did care about her. I really believe that he did care about her. However, like I said, when people are pressured or influenced for money or for some type of a quick fix because of maybe something personal that's going on in their life, they will sacrifice for that quick fix. Even if it means, hurting someone that they love or they care about. We move on to forced person. So again, the strong person of interest energy with this forced person came up again or appeared in Whitney's reading. So again, it brings back the same energy that this person, the strong person of interest, again, is masquerading as someone that is not who they say they are. And when you really zoom in and you really look at, we're going to break down this here. This person, it's showing that they are not who they are. They don't really care so much that they are being seen here, but at the same time, they are sneaky. This fan covers the bottom part, the mouth, because they speak lies. So they don't mind showing themselves or revealing themselves, but the bottom part, this fan is covering their mouth, which means that they are of deceit, they are of lies, they are of deception, of plotting, and bringing people into the mix as well. One of them being Nick. Okay? So it's like, then you have this other person, this other figure in the background, and it's almost like the strong person of interest is saying, I'm going to see to it that, you are not shown surrounding the events that unfolded or took place around Bobbi Kristina, if that makes sense. So they promised that his identity would be hidden while he is behind the scenes doing the dirt for the of that strong person of interest, if that makes sense. Okay? Now we move over to, this is where things really begin to wind down. We go here to the next card. We have despair. Despair is Nick Gordon. This is his energy here. This is his energy, despair. Okay? Despair. You can see that this image is someone who has their hand on their head. It's like things are starting to close in. This is an energy where there is nervousness, anxiety, maybe, even having sleepless nights, but being very bothered and very perturbed about what is going down and what is about to go down. I do believe that Nick was very much aware that this person of interest was going to go and finish up what he didn't do. I think he was very aware of it. So he very well knew who was behind orchestrating taking out Bobbi Kristina. And it just really ignored him. Before we get to that last card, because the last card we have is coffin. So we'll talk about it, and then I'm going to go back to my notes as we round out and wind down out the reading. So because of it, I do feel that he was beginning to express how he really felt about everything. And this actually do take me, and then I'll come back to the last card. This do take me back to my notes. As we close out, I do believe that Nick Gordon spoke up, expressed how he felt about his participation in plotting this whole scheme of things. And eventually, because of it, we go back to the last card, because of it, he passed away. It led to his demise. That's one aspect of this part of this reading, that because he was ready to kind of spill the beans, or he was just wanting out completely. I feel that he just wanted out. He was very, very nervous. He was of a nervous, paranoia kind of energy. And when people are involved in something and they see somebody else who is beginning to tense up, to be paranoid, they feel that it's a sign that they are going to quit altogether and walk away, or they are so annoyed that they can't handle the pressure of being involved into something like this, and they are going to come close to talking about something. And so the person of interest knew this, or was beginning to see that Nick was getting very tense, very nervous about it. And so eventually they took him out as well. So his death was not an accident. I believe his accident was a result of him wanting to come out of it. Now, I think a part of him kept the despair of what was going on to himself, because it was 3 years later after Bobbi Kristina passed. So I think during those years, though, he pretty much was in the spirit of the Ten of Swords. The Ten of Swords is an energy of walking away and just kind of drifting off, being quiet, until such time where perhaps they no longer want to keep quiet and they want to express how they feel about something. And in this scenario, he wanted to express to the person of interest the strongest energy present. He went to that person to say, I want out, or that he can't take it no more, and that perhaps, he was really beginning to feel bad. And I believe parts of him, felt really, really felt a certain way in terms of he felt how things went down with Bobbi Kristina. It was very awful, and he didn't like it. So it's almost like, karma began to set in. And it's almost like he wanted to clear his karma debt for being involved in something like this. But ultimately, this boy had a lot of sleepless nights. This was on his mind all that time. And I think at the very end, toward his demise, is when he spoke up and was no doubt going to expose a few people, but particularly that stronger person of interest. He was about to expose and bring and put names out there. And I just felt like he felt like, well, because I didn't finish the job, I know I'm not going to get paid for it because I didn't finish it. I didn't complete it. But at this point in time, I feel like he just didn't care. He didn't care, and his conscience was really, really eating him up. It was bothering him. And people sometimes, once they get things off their chest, or maybe he was even willing to pay for what he did to a point. It's like getting things off your chest. You know what I mean? And so I feel like at that point, he really didn't care what the outcome was. But for him, he wanted to kind of clear and his karma debt for what he did, for his part of it, because there were other people involved. And ultimately, it led to his demise because, as we know, he's no longer here. And his death was not accidental. Now, in terms of, they say that he died of an overdose or what have you. Don't know precisely because I didn't tap into that part and I didn't channel precisely as to what may have been the cause or what contributed to, his passing. I didn't tap into that part of him. I just wanted to basically tap more about the events surrounding Bobbi Kristina because I feel like this was more about her, but also what was involved, and more importantly, who was, to me, the puppeteer behind the scenes orchestrating this and pushing Nick to do this. Okay, so everyone, this is what I have in terms of my interpretation of the possible alleged events that led to Bobbi Kris's injuries and her being in a coma. Things are not what they appeared to be when they spoke about her, being in a coma that long. No, I really believe that it was a short kind of state that she was in and that she gained consciousness. And because Nick Gordon did not carry out getting rid of her, that the person of interest made sure that they would take her out as well. And I believe that that's what they did. I didn't tap into or channel how and what exactly they did. If I do, I may do it on my own, privately, off the camera. But overall, however they did it, the second time around, they succeeded. If that makes sense. Everyone, this does end this part of the reading pertaining to decoding Bobbi Kristina's death and what may have allegedly led up to it. But for sure, we know that it did, most importantly, had a lot to do with her mom. And the person that was behind her mom's death was definitely involved with the demise of Bobbi Kristina. As I said toward the end of Whitney Houston's reading, that ultimately Allah is the one who sees all things and He will bring justice when the time comes. I want to again extend encouragement. I want to extend Leola Brown for advocating, being Whitney's advocator, even after all this time, to truly seek justice. And just as I feel that justice will be served pertaining to Whitney Houston, it still connects to even Bobbi Kristina's death, that the person that was behind Whitney Houston at the same time will be judged and will serve or pay for the consequences of Bobbi Kristina. So it's like once they find the person behind Whitney Houston, then they basically found the same person that was behind Bobbi Kristina's demise as well. So everyone, I hope that my visual effects of interpreting what I felt as well happened allegedly surrounding Bobbi Kristina and her mom Whitney Houston. This is what I felt or have, intuitively picked up. I trust my intuition, and when something comes through very strong for me, I go with it, and I believe that what and how I channeled these messages today pertaining to Whitney Houston and Bobbi Kristina was very much similar. If not anything, it made it clear on how Leola Brown verbally described what she felt and how things turned out to be. And the tools that I use, my cards, I pretty much just brought it out so that you, the public, my audience, would see visually how things may have taken place. So with that being said, everyone, if you did, in fact, appreciate it, I won't say enjoyed because there was nothing enjoyable about bringing you this reading, but if you appreciated me giving you this reading, and if you want to express your thoughts and opinions, leave me a comment in the comment section to let me know what you think as well. And in terms of moving forward, if I will bring these kind of readings, I may look to do so from time to time. All right? So until the next time we connect, everyone, I'm wishing all of you a wonderful Saturday. Stay positive, and most of all, always know that in this world, there's a saying, the dead have nothing to fear. It's the living that we have to be concerned about, because there are always negative and dark forces that surround us. And sometimes it's the unseen forces that we need to be more cautious and wary of. Okay? So until the next time that I may bring you this kind of reading, again, I'm wishing all of you a wonderful Saturday. Peace, love, and light. Namaste.